Hey everybody, it's Justin here, aka Demonic Sweaters. Today I've got another video about the Donner DED-200X, which is basically the same as the 200, but it just has an extra cymbal that it comes with. And what I wanted to talk about is the advantages to using this drum kit as a MIDI controller for software like EZdrummer 3 or Superior Drummer 3. It does make a really good option for these two, but it does have some shortcomings, so I wanted to talk about those, but also talk about some of the reasons why you might want to choose this drum kit as a MIDI controller. Before we get started though, if you like this type of content, please check out my links down below. I have an Amazon store where you can go and purchase a lot of the equipment that I talk about on this channel. There's also some affiliate links down below, and if you would like to click on one of those, that helps me out as well. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I also wanted to talk about how it compares to drums like the Alesis Nitro Max or the Alesis Nitro Pro, because there are some advantages to this kit over those two drum kits, and the Alesis actually has a couple little advantages as well. So I want to talk about all of that here in this video. So the number one reason I think I would choose the Donner DED-200X over the Alesis Nitro Max is the build quality. This drum rack is incredibly solid. I've had no problems with any parts on it whatsoever, and it's just a very stable drum rack. The Alesis Nitros, I don't have the Max, but I have the original Nitro Mesh, and the rack is pretty much the same on those. The rack build quality on those drums is okay, like it gets the job done, but they are really not very sturdy at all, and they don't really go up very high, and the posts are actually much thinner than your standard drum racks. So when you're playing, they kind of shake around a lot. And I've seen, on the Max, I've heard that people have trouble with the snare drum, especially because it's a heavier snare drum, either falling off while they're playing or just, that post becoming loose. So I haven't experienced anything like that at all on the DED-200X. And I just think it's a really well-built drum set, especially for the money. For the price point, this is a really great drum kit. It gives you a lot of parts too. Like it basically is a 5-piece kit, and you get 2 crashes, a ride cymbal, and hi-hats. That is a really nice feature at this price point. Another thing that's really great about it compared to the Nitros is the fact that all of the cymbals, with the exception of the hi-hats, are dual zone. So what that means is you actually have a zone for the bow and a zone for the edge on all 2 crashes, as well as the ride cymbal. This gives you the option, if you're using it for a MIDI controller, to basically add more cymbals on each of those zones. So you could actually have 2 China cymbals or a China cymbal and a splash, and then 2 crashes on your 2 main crashes. And then you could have a ride, with the ride edge over there, or you could even, assign a bell sound to the ride edge or the bow. Another thing you could do too, since they're only dual zone, say you want a ride bell, you could actually have your 2 crashes mapped to the edges, and then your ride bow and edge mapped to the ride, and then you could put your ride bell on the bow of your other crash, which is another option you could do. So you still get 2 crashes and a 3-zone ride, even though you're hitting a different cymbal, the zone is there. So that can work as well. None of this is available on the Alesis drum kits because all of the cymbals on the Nitro series are all single zone. And that's really unfortunate. And it's kind of like one of those things that I thought Alesis would update when they came out with the Nitro Max, but they didn't. They're all still single zone. Now, I do believe the Nitro Pro has dual zone toms, so you could kind of approach that in a similar way and, map some sounds to your tom rims. But I think the Nitro Pro is in a higher price range than both the Donner DED-200 and the Nitro Max. Both drum kits do feature USB output, so connecting it to a computer is pretty much the same on both. However, there are a couple of issues with the Donner DED-200 that I would like to point out. Number one, the cymbals themselves, when you're playing through the module, are chokeable. You can choke all the cymbals on the drum kit, and you'll hear it if you're using the module sounds. However, it does not send that choke information out of the MIDI output. And that's something I had to find out basically the hard way. I was like sitting there trying to figure out why they weren't choking in Superior Drummer 3. And I spoke with the representative at Donner, and they let me know that it just does not send that information out the MIDI, which is really unfortunate because even though you have all those zones, you can't send choke information out of your MIDI output from the module. However, there is a workaround that I found. So like I was saying before, you have the multiple zones on the crashes. And what you could do is actually map your choke sound to the bow part of the cymbal. So when you hit with the tip, you can actually get that choke sound. You can even pretend like you're grabbing it to, kind of give the illusion that you're creating that choke sound when you hit the cymbal. For example, I'll show you exactly how it works. So yeah, you can work around this, but at that point you're losing one of your zones. But you can kind of, create presets depending on what you're playing. If you need a song that has a choke, you could program it in there. And if you don't, you could just leave those zones open for other cymbal sounds. Now, another issue that you might run into with the Donner DED-200X is the tracking capabilities of the hi-hat. Now, when I first set up this kit, I was having a little bit of issues getting some double triggering, and just some false triggering out of the hi-hat, and maybe it wasn't keeping up with me all the way, but I since figured out how to dial all of that out of there, basically. The thing that you need to do, first off, is just play with the settings in the module. You have to make sure that you have your threshold and your re-trigger settings dialed in as good as you can get them by listening to the module sounds first. So once you get that all set up, there may be another couple of adjustments that you have to do. Now, the main reason why I think that it gets double triggering is actually due to the vibration of the hi-hat itself. Because the way that these Donner cymbals are, is the felt is actually very tight on there, and then they have kind of like a rubber bushing in the middle of the cymbal, and that makes it move. And when you hit it on the edge, especially, you can see it vibrates quite a bit. My solution to this was actually just lowering it enough to where I don't hit the edge. I just hit with the tip of my stick on the hi-hat every single time, and that pretty much eliminated all the problems I was having. It doesn't really matter as far as performance because this is just a single zone. This is the only single zone cymbal you have, so the sound will be exactly the same whether you're hitting with the tip of your stick or whether you're hitting with the edge of your stick. Since I've been hitting exclusively with the tip, it has been able to keep up with my, my double stroke rolls and pretty much everything I've thrown at it. The Alesis, I haven't really had any issue like this with the hi-hat. But again, it's one of those things you can work around it if you just are patient and play with it enough, you can work around that little problem. And maybe yours doesn't even do it. Mine just seemed to do that when I first set it up, but I've since solved the problem. Finally, the last thing I want to mention is the hi-hat does not send any splash information out of the pedal. And the Alesis does do that as far as I know. I think it does it when you're listening to the module, but I actually haven't tested it in Superior Drummer 3 to see if I can get that splash function into the software. I should actually do that. Should have done that before this video, but I didn't. But it's actually in another location, so I can't test it right now. But anyway, there's no splash function, and as far as I can tell, there's no way that you can get around that. It's just not gonna do it. It is a really simple hi-hat pedal. You basically only have open and closed sounds, but you can, in Superior Drummer, you can go in and set which, open hi-hat sound you want to be for your open sound. Like you can have like a partially open or fully open, and you can change that depending on which type of song you're playing and the sound that you want. You can actually adjust those settings for the hi-hat. So it can sound pretty convincing. I mean, I've been using it like this and all the drum covers I've been doing. I haven't really noticed it so much to where I want to replace the hi-hat. Like it's really fine the way it is. It's not the most accurate or expressive hi-hat, but it is an entry-level kit. And the Nitro as well, I think the Nitro has one more expression level with the hi-hat. Like basically you have all the way closed, then half closed and half open, then all the way open, which gives it a little bit of advantage over the Donner DED-200, but it's not a huge one. But the splash function I do think is a pretty big advantage because I like being able to do that with my foot. It adds a nice level of expression, especially for playing quieter parts, to just have that splash sound in the background, with your hi-hat. But again, it's not a deal breaker. So anyway, my reason for making this video was just to give people some pointers and some tips and hopefully enable you to tune your electronic drum kit a little bit better with whatever VST you're using. If it's Superior Drummer or Easy Drummer 3, they all work in similar ways, so you can kind of, take the tips here and apply them to whatever software you're using, hopefully. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Do you have the DED-200? Do you have the Nitro? What is your experience with setting it up with VSTs? Any tips you want to share, go ahead and leave them down below as well. All right, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you on the next video.